What is up? It's Kaero. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at some Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth spoilers for the new Magic the Gathering set. If you like the channel, you know what to do. Without further delay, let's get into it. So we are starting off today with a banger for aggro decks. Battle of Bywater, double white, 1 generic, 3 mana sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater, then create a food token for each creature you control. So this is going to reward you for doing your go wide strategy. They put up some walls with some big 3/4/4/4 creatures. You go, nah, I'm going to destroy all those, and I'm going to continue killing you until you are dead. And then I'm going to create a bunch of food tokens. So food tokens are artifacts. So if you have any artifact synergies with creatures that you have, you can make them bigger after you wipe the entire board. This seems like a pretty good board wipe for aggro. We've seen a lot of legendary creatures in this set and familiar faces, but we don't see a lot of the common folk, and this is Took Reaper. 1 white, 1 generic for a halfling peasant, run-of-the-mill hobbit with a giant scythe. At 2/1, when it dies, the ring tempts you, so if you want the ring to be tempting you and that's part of your game plan, the Took Reaper can do that for you. Next we have Anduril, Flame of the West, 3 mana equipment, legendary artifact. Equipped creature gets +3/+1, so pretty good stat boost. When the equipped creature attacks, create 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. If that creature's legendary, instead create 2 of those tokens that are tapped and attacking. Not a huge fan of equipments because they're just very transparent, and you can play this on turn 3 and then try to equip it later. You're subject to getting blown out with instant speed removal, so it's going to be hard to attack with this thing. That being said, if you do get a couple attacks off with this thing, you're going to have a lot of spirit tokens, and the fact that they're flying is cool. And if it's a legendary creature, you can sort of circumvent that turn until you get to attack, and you get to attack immediately with those little flyers. So that's cool. Rewards token strategies as well. This card, I really like this card. Spiteful Banditry, double red and X, enchantment. When Spiteful Banditry enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each creature. Whenever 1 or more creatures your opponents control die, you get to create a treasure token. This ability triggers only once each turn. So you can come down, it'll be a one-sided board wipe if you have bigger creatures. If not, you can wipe the entire board. One of their creatures will die. You'll create a treasure token that ramps you further into your bigger thing that you're going to do next turn, and then that effect stays on the battlefield. So it's like an enchantment. This reminds me a little bit of Meathook Massacre. When it comes down, it does a bunch of damage, and then it has a lasting effect. Obviously, this is not as broken as Meathook, but it's still very good. I like tunable board wipes, and this one in red is awesome. Next up, we have Sharky, Tyrant of the Shire. This is 1 black, 1 blue, 2 generic for a legendary creature, Avatar Rogue at rare. It's a 2/4 creature, so it's a little bit defensive. Activate abilities of lands your opponents control can't be activated unless they're mana abilities, so it shuts down all man lands or lands that do other things except for generate mana. And then it also gains all the activated abilities of lands your opponents control except for mana abilities. So if you're playing an opponent that has a lot of like special lands, you're shutting them down and grabbing their effects is actually pretty cool. And mana of any type can be spent to activate Sharky's abilities. So this is very situational, right? You play this, it might be a sideboard card where your opponent has a ton of lands that do a bunch of different things, so they're relying on them really heavily. You can play Sharky and just eliminate their entire strategy and then get some upside off of it too. I don't think it's generically powerful, but it could be good in the right situation. Here we have a decent limited card, Revive the Shire, 1 green, 1 generic for sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand and create a food token. So in limited, the games go on a little bit grindy. They kill your big thing, you return it to your hand, and then you just get a food token on top of it. Maybe you can stabilize with the life, or if you have artifact synergies, maybe that matters. So cool little card, Revive the Shire. Okay, here's a card that I'm not a fan of, and I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments, but this is the Watcher in the Water. It's a really cool flavor, but I just don't know. It's double blue, 3 generic for 9/9 Kraken, which seems amazing. When it enters the battlefield, it comes in tapped with 9 stun counters on it. All right, so if it would become untapped, it doesn't, and then you remove a stun counter from it. So if you can't remove those counters, it takes 9 turns for it to be able to attack. But when you draw a card during an opponent's turn, you create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. So it does generate tokens, but it's kind of a little bit hard to satisfy that requirement. Whenever a tentacle you control dies, untap up to 1 target Kraken and put a stun counter on up to 1 target non-land permanent. So whenever the tentacle dies, it can untap itself and then it can attack. So there's a lot going on with this card. It's hard to make an initial judgment. It can untap whenever the tentacles die, but for you to generate tentacles, you have to be drawing cards not on your turn, but on your opponent's turn. So depending on, I guess, how much card draw you have at instant speed, this could be a build around but it definitely needs to be built around. Next we have Horn of the Mark, 2 generic legendary artifact, which is actually important because it can be played in any aggro deck, and it's definitely an aggro card. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, not a planeswalker or a battle, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So I think Horn of the Mark is best played probably when you have a 3-drop hasty creature. So you go turn 1, nice 2/1 or some aggressive creature. Turn 2, Horn of the Mark, attack turn 3, you get a hasty creature in, and then you get that trigger. And then if this thing stays out and you can attack with at least 2 creatures every turn, and you're attacking a player directly, you can just start refilling your hand every single turn with new creatures from your deck. So aggro decks like this, you can refill your hand. Card advantage card draw is typically very hard because your hand is empty by like turn 4 or 5, but if you can refill and keep this going, this is very good, I think. Next is a very weird card, Goldberry River Daughter, the wife of Tom Bombadil. This is 1 blue, 1 generic for legendary creature Nymph at 1/3. Tap Goldberry, remove a counter of each kind not on Goldberry River Daughter from another target permanent you control onto Goldberry. So that works with +1/+1 counters, menace counters, lifelink counters, flying, you name it, right? But it also works with sagas. So if you have an important saga like Urza's Saga, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, something like that, and you want to take a lore counter off of that, you can do that. I think that's probably going to be the best application. 1 blue, tap, move 1 or more counters from Goldberry onto another target permanent you control. If you do, draw a card. So Goldberry is all about manipulating counters, and whenever you get some proliferate in here, you can kind of plus, minus, remove, add, all kinds of stuff. It's definitely a build around card, and it's a weird card, but I really like it, and I really like the art. Next up is Shire Sheriff at uncommon, 1 white, 1 generic for 2/2 vigilance halfling soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice a token. When you do, exile target creature an opponent controls until Shire Sheriff leaves the battlefield. Typically, we see these types of effects at creatures with 3 mana. So if we remember Skyclave Apparition, Brutal Cathar, things like that, this is 1 turn earlier that you get to exile an opponent's creature. Now you do have to sacrifice a token, so you can do that with maybe a 1/1 human token. You can do that with a food token. There's a lot of food token generation in the set. Treasure token, whatever you have. But if you can get this done on turn 2 and exile one of the big creatures that they have, or even later if you have token build, just get rid of a little 1/1 human token or whatever and get rid of their big thing. Still pretty good in the mid to late game draw. It has vigilance, so if you pump it up, it can actually do some damage, being a 2/2 for 2. That is all the spoilers that came out today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.